What's good, tinfoil fam? Episode 4 of Pluribus is called Carol, Please, an episode that focuses on the battle of ideals between Carol and the hive mind that has taken over the planet. But also, Carol's goals have changed slightly in this episode. We're going to get into that. There is a lot to discuss, but be warned, this is a spoiler-rich environment. And also, before we begin, I have to give a shout out to the channel patrons. Thank you so much for choosing to support my work here. You are appreciated. The links to both the channel Patreon and the Discord can be found in the description. Now, enough with the intro, because it's time to dive. We start this one out with a character that was hinted at in episode 2, Manousos Oviedo, or the Paraguayan. This guy is the 13th survivor that Carol chewed out over the phone while on the airplane in episode 2. Now, from the looks of it, he's been holed up in this storage facility for so long that he's turned to Alpo for sustenance. So we can assume that he's not been out much since our new friends have arrived. If it's coming down to this, it's desperate times. Now, from what we can tell, he spends his day trying to make contact with other survivors via the ham radio that he's got in his office. Or is he? There's something odd about this scene that stood out to me, and I started to wonder if my tinfoil was wrapped a little too tight, or is it strange that he keeps changing the station and listening, but he never says anything? So I looked around the internets, and wouldn't you know it, there are some theories on this subject. I came across one particular theory that I thought was super interesting, and it could better explain what he's up to here. According to the theory, Manusos is trying to listen for evidence of a broadcast. The problem is that he doesn't know what frequency it will appear on. One theorist on Reddit proposed that this unusual activity is an attempt to try and find the frequency that the hive is using to communicate with each other. All of this requires that this works by some kind of radio signal. Now, there is reason to believe that this could be the case. Remember, the initial signal that was sent to Earth was via radio, so it kind of makes sense to give this plan a shot. And who knows, in doing so, he might be able to devise a way to block the signal. So it sounds like a decently solid theory, but we're gonna have to wait and find out if that is the case. There was one other thing that got me thinking in this episode. So we can assume by his attitude towards the hive, the fact that he wants nothing to do with them, that this is why he responds to Carol's phone call the way that he did. He assumed that she was one of them. This shouldn't be a surprise. Fans were expecting this character to realize that Carol must be unjoined because of the way she talked to him on the phone. I mean, how else would you explain the expletive-laden phone call that he received? But I think the point here is that we will get to see more of this Mr. Oviedo in the future. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has some kind of useful skill or background that will be valuable to Carol. Also, did you notice that the timer didn't appear in this episode at all, even though we did some time jumping? Just something to take note of. Another very important scene takes place between Carol and the cyclist, representing the hive. We already knew that she was gonna go test the hive to see where their boundaries are, which is the smartest thing that she could do right now, because there's no saying how much she could learn about them via this method, especially since they cannot seem to tell a lie. So Carol here is trying to see if she can get them to say something that could possibly be taken negatively. She's pushing the boundaries to see what she can get away with or how far they're willing to go. But our super wholesome, heart-healthy friend here performs a dodge that gives away their inability to truly have an individual objective opinion. Instead, they'd rather orient every response around Carol's feelings, no matter how awkward it gets. It's coddling of the worst kind because it's so clearly patronizing. Carol gets the maybe not so wise idea to broach the touchy subject of Helen's true feelings about her recent novels. It appears that she feared that Helen wasn't really all that impressed with her writing, and she's looking for confirmation. Now, through a series of questions, she finds out, and of course, Carol is devastated. I think it's likely that Helen also thought that Carol wasn't reaching her full potential in her writing career. Again, this goes back to the idea that Carol's novels don't reflect who she really is. It's a made-up facade meant to please everyone and maybe sell a few more copies while she's at it. I say it all the time, you can't please everyone. But regardless of all that, Carol takes the news like a gut punch. Now, there is also this massive info drop in this episode at the hospital when Carol visits a recovering Zosia to apologize for blowing them up the other day. She's not there just to check on her. She does seem to care about Zosia for real, but this is really part of her plan. Now, the big question on Carol's mind is how can she undo the joining, right? So this is her plan. She's just gonna straight up ask Zosia to see if they figured out if this can be undone. And because Zosia can't make Carol unhappy, she indirectly admits the affirmative. It looks like the joining can be reversed. She would probably need for them to create the antidote unless she can somehow trick them into giving it to her. There are other options. One that does come to mind is that she could figure out how to block the effect for now, giving her time to concoct a plan to free all of humanity later. It's not like they're gonna harm her or hurt her for doing so. They've used the terms psychic glue and lysogenic virus. I am not a biologist, despite what you may have heard, but I did a little light digging on the subject. The gist of what I've learned is that basically the alien RNA sequence has been embedded into human DNA like a sleeper agent, far too sciencey for me and for most novelists. But the psychic glue term is also interesting because it seems to imply that the virus gives humanity the ability to unify our minds, yet the body remains the same. This is why Carol has the idea to drug Zosia to get her to tell their secrets. But hold on to that thought, we're gonna come back to that in a minute. And one of the things we learn about these hive minds is that they can't handle strong negative outbursts. It causes a shock to the network or the system that they are using to communicate with each other. So it stands to reason that if she could somehow get the rest of the holdouts together and say threaten to crash the network with a fit of rage, she might be able to get what she wants from them. This of course would just be a threat because millions of people would probably perish in the process. But in a way, they could at least find out how they would respond to such a threat. We've been you, but you've never been us. Another way of saying, don't knock it till you've tried it. This is the line that closes out this scene between Carol and Zosia. And I think the latter half of this conversation is setting us up for the moment when Carol will learn what it is like to join. It will be a revelation. This is my guess. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I think she's gonna join in as in it's game over, she's one of them. But I do think that learning what it is, what actually happens and what it feels like, well, it might make her question things. It might sound a lot better than the life she had before all of this took place. This part of the conversation begins when we get into Carol's childhood and how her parents sent her to a conversion therapy camp when they found out about her orientation. This experience clearly traumatized her, and it could explain her choices with her latest novel and the love interest. The pieces are coming together. Things are starting to make sense now. Now, we might assume that experience may have led her to hide part of herself if she internalized any of the shame they no doubt put her through. But she brings this up to say that despite their intentions, the hive's actions aren't ethically sound. That's the point she's trying to make. You think you're doing good, but you're actually taking away people's rights. Now, Zosia's response to this is, again, that line, you've never been us. She's convinced that she can change Carol's mind if she just gives her a chance to show her what it's like. And I think that's what she has planned. I don't know if she's just going to explain it to her or maybe give her some kind of virtual experience. We'll see. Now take note of how Carol's whole opinion or whole attitude changes when she finds out that it is possible to undo this thing. She goes from thinking of it in terms of how can I save myself from joining to how can I save all of humanity. So step one is to get the hive to tell her how to reverse it through the tried and true method of tripping balls until the truth spills. Now, this did seem like a good idea at first, money in the bag. But what ends up happening is that when she drugs Zosia and begins questioning her about this reversal, the hive surrounds her and begs her to stop, citing Zosia is dying as a pretty valid reason. This is a very ironic moment because Carol tried to hack the hive's logic and got herself emotionally hacked instead. Her human empathy wouldn't let her go through with the plan when she sees how much it harms Zosia and the others around her. Oh, and I also forgot to mention the confirmation that we got earlier that Carol is kind of feeling Zosia. So yeah, there's definitely the seeds of a romance being laid down here. Complications incoming. So much for that interrogation approach though, which does make me think that the emotional bomb idea that I talked about earlier, she's just not built for that. But I am curious to know what Carol's plans will be now that this has happened. Now, as for the ending, there is some speculation into Zosia's falling out here. Is this happening due to an overdose? Maybe she got that hypo wrong, or is this coming from her connection to the hive being somehow disrupted? I'm leaning toward it being about the hive. This reaction might be indicating that persons joined to the hive cannot be separated without risking their life. Like once you're in, you're in. Maybe. But it could also have been something external. It could have been the fact that the hive sensed that she was about to give up their secrets, which would be absolutely catastrophic to them. So the system is designed to handle any joined member who might betray their goals. Maybe they start disconnecting her or they make her pass out. Now, as far as the Carol pleas that we hear them repeating over and over again and the crying, to me, this sounds like Zosia is speaking through the others because she can't manage to do it for herself. She's incapacitated. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, you already know what to do. Special thanks to the entire Tinfoil family, including the channel patrons. Much love. Stay safe out there, be kind to yourselves, and until next time, off you go.